Good morning and welcome to KidNuz. I'm Tori. Today is Monday, November 14th, 2022. And we begin with a giant symbol of the holiday season pulling into Midtown Manhattan on the back of a flatbed truck. An 82-foot Norway spruce journeyed 200 miles from upstate New York over the weekend and is now standing tall as this year's Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. It sits in a base that holds 90 gallons of water, and its caretaker says will drink all of it every day for about a week. After that, it'll stop absorbing water and start drying out, but not before millions pay a visit. The lighting ceremony will be on November 30th, when it will be adorned with 50,000 multicolored lights and a star made from 3 million Swarovski crystals. NASA rolled the dice by not rolling its Artemis rocket back into its hangar before Hurricane Nicole hit Florida. And that bet may have paid off. The winds caused a little damage, and it won't launch today as planned, but all systems are reportedly go for a Cape Canaveral liftoff later this week. Unless another problem surfaces, the much-delayed rocket, topped by the Orion capsule and led by Commander Munikin, will be spacebound at 1:04 a.m. Eastern Time Wednesday morning. It's shaping up to be a photo finish in both the House and the Senate. Votes are still being counted, but CBS News predicts Democrats will hold the Senate by the slimmest of margins, while Republicans may get the House, also just barely. Historically speaking, the results are a win for Mr. Biden. The party of the president tends to do poorly in midterms, but this time, according to CNN, it had one of its best outcomes of the past century, and it's put the president in a position of power for a week-long international trip, the highlight of which came earlier today at the G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia, where he sat down with Chinese President Xi Jinping to hash out disagreements between the two superpowers. It was their first face-to-face meeting of Mr. Biden's presidency. Ukraine isn't a member of the Group of 20 Nations, but Volodymyr Zelensky has been invited to address the gathering remotely to give an update on his country's war with Russia. And for now, he has some good news to report. Ukrainian troops retook the city of Kherson over the weekend, prompting residents to sing and dance in the streets. In a radio address to his people, Mr. Zelensky said more such celebrations were coming, that his military will be chasing Russian occupiers out of many other villages in the coming weeks and months, and that no one will be forgotten. A few other KidNuz notes. The cruise industry can't seem to escape COVID. The Majestic Princess had to dock in Sydney, Australia halfway into its 12-day voyage when more than 800 passengers fell ill and tested positive. Most have mild symptoms, but will have to isolate. King Charles turns 74 today. Per tradition, his birthday will be celebrated twice, today with multiple gun salutes, and again in the spring when the weather is better for bigger outdoor festivities. And for the first time in its 67-year history, Disneyland has added characters in wheelchairs to an attraction. The two animatronic dolls can be found inside the It's a Small World ride. They'll also be added next year at Walt Disney World in Florida and Disneyland Paris. Apparently, even rats like to bop their heads to a good beat. That discovery was made when scientists outfitted the rodents and some humans with wireless gadgets to measure head movement, then played songs like Lady Gaga's Born This Way, Queen's Another One Bites the Dust, Beat It by Michael Jackson, Sugar by Maroon 5, and Mozart's Sonata for Two Pianos in D major. Both rats and humans had the best beat synchronization between 120 to 140 beats per minute. Both moved their heads in a similar rhythm, and the level of head jerking for each dropped as music sped up. The findings suggest that the ability to keep a beat is more widespread in the animal kingdom than originally thought. The study can be found in Science Advances. That's it for KidNuz. Now, today's KidNuz quiz. When is the newest launch date for the Artemis rocket? Wednesday at 1:04 a.m. Eastern Time. What Disneyland ride now has characters in wheelchairs? It's a Small World. What rodent can keep a beat much like humans? Rats. How tall is the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree? 82 feet. In our KidNuz Kicker, Rockefeller Center's tree tradition dates back to the early 1930s when workers in the area reportedly pooled their money to buy a 20-footer and decorate it with cranberries and garlands of paper. It served as a symbol of hope during the Great Depression and grew in scale and scope year after year. This year's tree, like all the others before, are scouted out by the head gardener at Rockefeller Center, and then the owners are asked to donate it. Most arrive via a tricked-out trailer, but one came down the Hudson by barge, and another time it arrived from Ohio on the world's biggest transport plane. Before we go, we want to shout out our classroom, starting with one of our KidNuz teacher advisors, Mr. Scott, and his amazing students at Smith Elementary in Sammamish, Washington. And happy birthday, Mr. Scott! Mrs. Buer and her marvelous Mustangs in room 125 at Duff Elementary in Arlington, Texas. Mrs. Bacon and her Panthers at Broadwater in Billings, Montana. To California for some Eagles, Miss Mello at Hart Ransom in Modesto, and Mrs. Stoddart at Mitchell Community School in Santa Clarita. A reminder that KidNuz is a nonprofit, and we rely on your support to keep us on the air and ad-free. Please consider making a donation or sponsoring an episode. Information for both can be found on our website at kidnuz.org. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here for more kid-friendly current events tomorrow morning.